Now, early last week, the Nigerian Labour Congress and the Trade Union Congress expressed disappointment over the 48,000 naira minimum wage proposed by federal government, saying that the wage proposal is insensible and significantly short in meeting the needs of the average Nigerian worker. The president of Nigeria Labour Congress, Ajaero, and the vice president of Trade Union Congress, Etim, made the assertion in a media conference immediately after the national minimum wage negotiation with the federal government in Abuja on Wednesday. The union leaders said government's failure to provide any sustainable data to support their offer exacerbates the situation, adding that the proposed amount lacks of transparency and good faith, undermines the credibility of the negotiation process, and erodes trust between the parties that are involved.
Right. The negotiations resume on May 21st, after indications that the government may increase the proposed amount. The chairman of the Tripartite Committee on National Wage or Minimum Wage, Alhaji Bukar Guni, invited the labor leaders to continue negotiations. NLC's president, Ajaero, insisted on a minimum wage of 615,000 naira, blaming the government and the organized private sector for the breakdown in negotiations. Now, the Director General of the Nigerian Employers Consultative Association, NECA, Adewale Smart Oyeride, urged the unions to reconsider the position and return to the negotiation table.
Yes, now joining us to shed more light on the issue is Ismail Adejumo, PRO NLC Lagos Chapter. You are welcome, sir. Good to have you here.
Thank you for having me on News Central this morning.
Yes, and thank you for coming and showing enthusiasm in actually coming. We want to point out that he was very enthusiastic in meeting us today.
Unlike some people.
Now, so we'd like you to elaborate more on Labour's position and also Congress' position, the trade union. This 48,000 naira minimum wage, which they walked out on initially, but have resorted to coming back for more renegotiations. Where exactly does Labour and the TUC stand on this?
Thank you very much. First and foremost, I need to commend Nigerian workers generally for their resilience, for their doggedness, for their steadfastness, and their keeping faith with the government despite this provocative situation. Before now, you agree that most of the labor leaders are looking towards having a reasonable amount for Nigerian workers, so that at this time where the economic situation is very, very harsh on an average family, that we can now be talking of a living wage, not even minimum wage. Because if you look at all the indices that determine a decent living, everything has gone up. And Nigerian Labour Congress and the TUC, the two labor centers, are very, very proactive in engaging the government by working out a template that is sustainable, that will not be just a kind of starvation, because what they are proposing at the moment is a form of starvation, putting an average family into perpetual poverty. And that will not help us, because there is need for government to work towards motivating the workforce to be productive and to create more wealth, because the wealth of the nation is created by the workers.
So, sir, let me ask. Now, the NLC is proposing 615,000 naira. Yeah. The government is proposing 48,000 naira. The NLC has told that we're taking a look at the average Nigerian worker and family person. Yeah. And this is why 615,000 naira is the relevant fee that we are, or amount that we're proposing. What indices is the NLC expecting the government to also bring forth to substantiate their proposal of 48,000 naira? And while you're doing that, also, if you can put in the private sector and their proposal of 78,000 naira as well.
Thank you very much. The proposal and the template is so robust that even the private sector, as we speak today, the minimum wage within the organized private sector is 78,000 naira as we speak. Now, we are talking of a country where the inflation rate has gone to about 34.something%. The consumer price index, everything has gone up. The food inflation, everything is out of the reach of a common man. And government is talking about 48,000. Where does it go? Where can we go from here? This is very, very insulting, and in fact, a sign of provocation to the labor leadership. Because to sustain as a family, an average of family of 4, because the government regulation says that you must not have more than 4 children. Any other extra is at your own expense. For 4 and a father and mother, definitely that is a family of 6. And if you have to cater for a family of 6 in a state like ours in Lagos, a very cosmopolitan city, you need to have an average apartment of not less than maybe 2-bedroom apartment. No matter how remote the area is, you must have at least 1.5 million upward to sustain an apartment as a worker. You need to transport yourself to and from to the office. This is also a very humongous amount. If you look at the transport fare, now it's gone up. Although the government of Lagos is trying to at least ameliorate the suffering through the BRT system by putting 25% discount. But that does not even address the fundamentals, because the population of Lagos is so high that, in fact, most people cannot plow through the BRT corridor. And if you look at the food need of an average family, a day, a family needs like about 9,000 naira to sustain. Let's say you are giving a meal of about maybe 1,500 or 1,200 naira. If you sum it up, that's about 9,000, multiply it 30 days. These are the indices. And if you look at even the utility, before the proposal of 615, the utility has not high to the extent that the government will now jack up the electricity tariff. The electricity tariff now has made everything, in fact, make it worse. And that is why we want government to be very, very, reasonable and work out a sustainable wage. We know the economy is very fragile now in terms of sustainability, but they should compare that. Those who are in the legislative, the political office holder, and the people in the public service and the private sector also have a family that they need to cater for, and they need to survive.
What then will be that wage? How does the government has proposed 48,000 naira? NLC is proposing 615,000 naira. Yeah. What would be a gap or a proposed middle that will suit both the government, NLC, and TUC?
That is subject of negotiation. I'm not to determine here now, because the template is very, very robust. In fact, I can run it down for you. I have some indices that form that 615, where it's in the media, where we roll out a press conference to give the details of what constitutes 615. Anybody that is any less than that 615 will be any what we call starvation wage. And the family will be subject to perpetual poverty. Many families as of today are living in multidimensional poverty. They cannot survive. Many are on irredeemable loans from all these banks. And for people to really be motivated and add value to the public sector in terms of productivity, they need to have a wage that can take them home. What we earn today cannot take us home. So that means it's a window for people to be indulged in corruption. And that is why we are telling government that they need to be sensitive about the plight of the workers, both in the public and the private, to set out a minimum wage. We know the minimum wage is a matter of law. It's not what government can just wake up overnight and pronounce. And that is why this process have come through the tripartite committee. Both the organized private sector, the government side, the labor union, all of them are represented. And they must work out something that is sustainable, because we know various states have their peculiarity in terms of finances. Okay. But if there is a minimum wage that you must not go below, you can either go upward. You can see some states are even proposing higher than the government as of today.
The negotiations broke down between the government, NLC, and TUC, right? And the TUC and NLC walked away. Now they're asking to come back to the table to have the conversation. Yeah. What will be the steps and process that both NLC and TUC will take to make sure that something favorable comes out from those negotiations to meet the needs and the demands of what you just mentioned for Nigerian workers? Thank
you very much. Our leaders are very, very, they are a group of professionals, very seasoned administrators and managers of human and material resources in their various fields. They also have experts in their midst that look at all the economic indices. We are very mindful that the economy must not be, be put on a level that will not be sustainable, because if there are high wage, definitely it's bound to bring about hyperinflation. Already what we have now, what they are proposing is very, very ridiculous. If you look at a bag of rice as we speak, it's not even measuring to what they are proposing to an average worker. It's an insult on our collective sensibility. The government must come back to the table and reason and dialogue constructively with the labor leadership that we trust, that we have put forward, the likes of Comrade Ajaero and the Comrade of TUC, Osifu. We believe in them, and we know they will surely work out a reasonable wage for Nigerian workers that will be sustainable for all government at various levels. We know the government has expanded the tax net. The revenue of government has increased as a result of the removal of subsidy. So what they are realizing as a additional revenue, they are appropriating to all the states and the local government should also have effect in the life of an average Nigerian.
So how does the NLC and TUC expect to do this? Now let's remove strike. Let's say the negotiations do not go any further. What other apparatus do the unions have that does not include a strike action?
The most sustainable and ideal negotiation skill is to dialogue, is to negotiate. And we are open to negotiation and dialogue from time to time. That's why you see the labor leader, we are not just like any other person that will go on strike. There are procedures for going on strike. There are rules of engagement. Before we go on strike, we'll have given some notice. We've given some ultimatums to government to yield to our demands and reason. So if government fails to do this, we may not have choice based on our member, because we need to report back to them. There must be feedback. They send us to go and speak for them. And when we are not meeting their demands and yearnings, we have to report back to them. Whatever they want is what the leadership will propose. And that is why we are telling the government that they should not make the economy, the country labor environment to be so hostile and strained that workers will not have no any choice than to embark on strike. Strike will be the last resort. Because if we don't demand for what our member wants, definitely
yes,
the leadership demands will be held responsible as people that have compromised.
So, sir, but the question still remains: apart from strike and say the negotiations break down, what other apparatus? Because it's like people are asking, the NLC doesn't have any other thing apart from strike.
No.
If this does not happen,
protest,
are we expecting?
We do picketing. With the other many instruments that we use in the labor circle to press our demands. Before we get to the strike is the last resort in any industrial dispute. But as we speak today, government have enjoyed in fact, the highest cooperation of the labor movement in terms of trying to key into their policy trust, to reason along with them, and to give the government, which have not even, at least by 29th of this month, it will be 1 year in office. So there must be a kind of re-evaluation. This policy they have introduced, is it really working? Is it meeting the yearning and aspiration of Nigerians? If it's not, then they have to do a retrospect and withdraw some of the policies that are anti-people. So that the greatest essence of any government is to bring about greater happiness to the greater number. And if that is not made, definitely something must be done urgently on the part of government.
And we do appreciate the fact that the NLC and the TUC are fighting for the average man. However, it seems like sometimes when you're fighting for that average man, you're still causing injury to him. Because if you do picketing, let's leave strike now, it will still cause his disadvantage, whether you like it or not. So what means, I ask again, is there that is not a disadvantage to the very people that the NLC and TUC are trying to protect?
We are very mindful of the economic implication of going on strike. It will cost the government and the private sector a lot of money they are going to lose. Even a day, it costs government not less than 3.3 to maybe 5 billion if we shut down the country for a day. And we are critical stakeholder, we are partner in progress in the Nigerian state. We will not allow that to happen, except government push us to the wall without trying to reason, you understand, and dialogue with the leadership. Because we are open to negotiation. That's why you see they move out of the negotiation table for government to bring out a reasonable card to the table. Because we are proposing 615, which is a living wage, a kind of a very reasonable wage to sustain an average family. In the country where the inflation has gone to about 34.something%, where the food inflation is on the high side, and people cannot survive. Now they have introduced series of taxes, electricity tariff. Now there is a lot of tariffs in the banking sector, the utility like the DSTV2, all of them are increasing. So where do we survive from here? And the government president told us that Nigeria should allow to breathe, to allow us to breathe. If we cannot breathe, then we push us to a point of suffocation. And from suffocation, we die. People are dying already.
You said your strategy is to be able to ensure that this happens is negotiation and
dialogue.
What are those? It has to be strategic, right?
Yes.
Because clearly, the very first negotiation, both TUC and NLC walked out on it, and it fell through. What are the strategies that you're going to employ to make sure that something substantial comes out for the next meeting?
Definitely, the leadership have the skill, they have the capacity. We have trust. We have so much trust in them. I've said it earlier on. The likes of Comrade Ajaero is the commander-in-chief. in Nigeria, as far as labor movement is concerned, along with the TUC president, they are men of impeccable character. They are very distinguished Nigerians. We don't know them for, anti-people, rather than progressive unionism. And we believe in their sense of judgment that they will come to conclusion with the government to come out with a reasonable wage that will be sustainable for an average Nigerian worker, both in public and private sector.
Right. And lastly, on the side of the government, I know that the members of NLC or the executives that were there from both NLC and TUC expressed expressed that the members of government who were at the committee, or members of the committee who were at the negotiations, were insensible to the matters of the people. So I would like for you to speak to that part of it, especially to the tripartite committee, those who will be there for the next negotiations.
In any negotiation, if you want to put a proposal, you must back it up with empirical statistics. So our own that we propose, 615, is detailed. We have everything from education need of Nigerians, the housing need, the food need of an average family, the health expenses that they need to incur, their utility, and so many expenses that they need to incur to survive as a family in Nigeria. And that is a most sensitive thing that government needs to be reasonable about. And that's why the leadership use that word. They are abusing our collective sensibility. Because if the organized private sector, their least minimum wage as of today is about 78,000 naira, and the people in the public sector are earning 30,000 naira, apart from the wage award that was introduced, 35,000 to augment because of the harsh implication of the subsidy removal, then government should be reasonable to push forward and see something that we at least ameliorate the suffering of Nigerians vis-a-vis, the current economic reality. Because a bag of rice today, a bag of gari, a bag of rice is going to about 60 to 70,000. I don't know. More. Depends on the state. More. And gari now is also going very high. The same thing with beans. All these consumables. This is where worker can survive. So but if it is not affordable, our purchasing power has been eroded. People cannot purchase. The only way to increase the purchasing power of the workers and the people is to redistribute the wealth through a reasonable and a sustainable wage to workers, because they will need to go to the same market. The legislators that are earning millions, earning fabulous allowances, they are not special Nigerians. Mm-hmm. They are not contributing more, especially to the people in the core public service or in the private sector that need to also survive. So for us to survive as a people is what we are fighting for. Mm-hmm. We are not asking too much. So we are not too dogmatic that whatever we have proposed should be the fixed thing. But government should be able to shift ground to see what is reasonable, what is sustainable with the economic position of the country, so that we can all move forward together as a people, and Nigeria will be more prosperous.
So let me get this straight. What you're saying is, if they're going to bring any number, they must bring their own indices and statistics to back it up, to be transparent.
Definitely to back it up, because our own proposal, by the United Nations standard, that is, for a family to feed for a day, we need about $2, one person. And if you translate that with the exchange rate, put it together with all these indices we have enumerated, you agree with me that for 615 it's not bad, except we government knows that, okay, we have a lot of debt that the government is servicing at the moment. They have all other challenges that's confronting the country at the moment, vis-a-vis the past administration inadequacies. And all these things, we put it together, we'll be able to reach a position, a compromise that, yes, at this point in time, we can have a middle lane that, okay, out of 615, let's go even by the way of the organized private sector, which have already proposed 78,000. A state in Nigeria, those states have proposed 70,000. So how much the federal government will be proposing 48,000? I think that is very, very ridiculous at this moment. They need to do something urgent to at least build confidence in the Nigerians, because the president said the campaign on the Renew Hope that will give Nigerians a living wage, not just a minimum wage. And that 48,000 is nowhere near what we call a sustainable wage, not to talk of a living wage.
So my final question for you will be, suppose the government comes to an agreement, or wants the NLC to come to an agreement where subsidy is provided for maybe this or that. I'm not being specific now. Would the NLC take that option?
Subsidy will be provided. Definitely, there have been the government of like Lagos have been doing some food palliative subsidy. They have been doing palliatives in the transport sector, subsidizing the BRT boxes, and some other palliatives to cushion the effect of the subsidy removal. But be that as it may, the federal government promised to introduce the CNG buses, which will make transportation much cheaper, because one of the major expenses that the workers incur is transportation. Most offices don't have staff bus.
So will this be welcome?
Definitely they need to go into that and also work on our refinery. They promised in the last agreement that at least 4 of our nation refinery, 2 will be working. They are home with the Port Harcourt refinery. We want to see results in this regard.
So will it be welcome if
and
they choose
the
that
Dangote
route?
refinery also, we believe at least it's working, but it's not producing at the rate that is sustainable locally. We only hear that it's producing diesel at a rate that is not even, palatable to the economy locally. So if our refinery, local refinery is working optimally in full capacity, then the production cost will reduce, because they are taking the crude out of the country and they import it back. And the exchange rate is to determine the import and export of the produce. So this is mind-boggling.
So Mr. Ismail, like I asked,
it's not sensitive.
Will it be welcome if they were to introduce more subsidy and say, let's stick to that 48,000, or maybe just increase to the private sector suggestion of 78,000?
That is what I'm saying, telling you.
Will they accept?
That 48,000 is not a reasonable benchmark.
But will they accept if they subsidize?
I don't see the leadership accepting that, because it's far short of even the private sector current benchmark, which is 78,000. So anything reasonable should be something from 250, 300,000.
Oh, there we go.
At the
Finally
moment.
got a figure, because I asked.
Yeah, that's what we're trying to do.
No, we've been working on
we've been
different
hoping for a figure from you
statistics,
since.
because we are partner in the progress in Nigerian projects. We don't want Nigeria to collapse. As much as we are sensitive about this condition, we should also the government should also be reasonable that an average family in the public service or private need to survive. So that they will not indulge in corruption, because we are trying to reduce corruption and, if need be, eradicate it.
Mr. Adejumo,
that is the only way
Ismail,
we can have economic prosperity.
I want to say thank you for your very, very fiery contribution to our show this morning.
Thank you. It's my pleasure always to be here and to lend my voice as a labor leader
And a big
to
voice
the yearnings and aspirations of Nigeria.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.